Our members enjoy many benefits of club membership, as you can see on the slide here. Our very talented video team records all of our presentations, and they are posted on our website. But in order to access the presentations, you need to be a member of the club, and we're very happy to enroll you in the back. Next. The association always wants us to remind you that the views expressed in the presentations are those of the presenters and do not reflect the views of the association or the club or its leadership. Please remember to hold your questions until the end of today's presentation. We will have roving mics available. And please remember that although our leadership election is a few months off, we need volunteers all the time to help us. You'll be hearing more about that. You'll be getting messages from us. But since some of our leaders are being termed out, we need people to step up to leadership, and you can start by volunteering for all kinds of things like greeters or helping with the luncheon or helping with video. There's lots of opportunities. So when you get your email, be sure to let us know what you're interested in helping us with. So, having made my recruitment pitch, let's begin. I'd like to introduce our fabulous program director, Juanita Brown, who will introduce our topic and speakers.
Thank you, fabulous President. No, I'm so glad to see all your smiling faces this morning. Welcome to Lifelong Learning. And I am so, I have not had the chance to go to the Neon Museum myself. And I'm so looking forward to this presentation today. And I have put a sign-up sheet on the table where you find their brochures. If you would like to do an in-person tour of the museum, once I get the final list of people who would like to do it, I'll put together a trip. We'll get a bus and we'll go over there. And she told me that because summertime gets so hot, you have to do it in the daytime if we do a group tour. But that's okay. At least you can see what it is you'll come back to look at night. And I think it's going to be probably reasonably priced. And once I get 40 people, that's the cap. So if you think you're interested, don't leave without signing the interest sheet over on their table. So now I quit yapping and I give you Kaylee O'Donnell.
Are we on? Yeah, okay. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna move over to our presentation. So what you're about to see is a 3D model. And that's kind of how I'm going to introduce our museum today. So Juanita, she named me. I'm Kaylee O'Donnell. I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator. And this man sitting next to me, this is Matt Martello. And he is what is your title?
I am the training supervisor. So I welcome all of our new staff members, regardless if they're admin or brand new guides. And with the museum guides, they go through a 2-week intensive training. So that's what I do. So.
Oh, sorry. I did that training with Matt, and Matt's selling himself short, so he's the guy that trains every single tour guide at our museum, and he is the one that, in my opinion, gives the best tour of our museum, so I brought him today. I'm going to give a little bit of the tour, and then Matt's going to take it from me and give you the nitty-gritty and the juicy stuff. So a little bit about what you're looking at. This is La Concha. This is the lobby of our museum. We're going to walk around the lobby. We're going to walk around what we call the Neon Boneyard. You might get a little sick. If you do, tell me to slow down. If you've ever kind of done a Zillow tour, or if you've ever looked at Google Maps, there's a street view, where you can kind of hop around. This is exactly like that. And I'll kind of start there. So just a little overview of who we are. Oh, and also these are our funders, so MGM Resorts Foundation. That's why I'm here today. And at the end of this tour, I ask that you take a survey for us so we can show MGM that we come out and we work with people like you. Our museum, this is our mission, and essentially what this means is that we are the collectors of Las Vegas history. That's how we see ourselves, and that's the vision, is that we are collecting every story that we can in Las Vegas, stories from people like you, everyday stories, and kind of chronicling the evolution of our city. And what we're gonna kind of do today, so what's on your seat, if you sat on a clipboard, I'm sorry. These are discovery guides that I've made. It's optional, there's no grade. I'm not gonna ask for it back. That's for you to take if you want it. If you leave it on the seat, I'm not offended either. And then at the end, there'll be a survey. This is what it looks like here. It's really just a lot of different questions trying to get you to start thinking about Vegas and your history. And then the survey that we have, I promise it's short. It's literally 5 questions. Please take it. And then with that, I'll kind of get started. So I'm gonna start right here. This is the camera that is used to create these 3D models. I'm actually the one that goes out and I do these photo shoots. I'm the one that creates these models. I kind of see the program from the beginning to the end, right? I set up the camera, I take the photos, then I come out and I give the tour. But this camera, it's special. It's called a Matterport camera. It's used a lot in realty. And the way this camera works, it's not traditional. You can see there's multiple lenses right here. Those lenses, they actually shoot out infrared rays, essentially, and they're picking up depth data. So it's a little bit different, and you're gonna see throughout the tour, there's like some kind of funkiness as I walk through, and that's due to depth data. And the more that the technology advances, the less you're gonna see that. So we'll see how well of a dime I did. I'm gonna start walking through. This is our lobby right here. You can see right here, clearly I took this last November, during Thanksgiving time. It's kind of a shot, a time shot. And then just kind of a little bit on the motel itself. So this motel, it was La Concha, which means the shell in Spanish. It was kind of near where the pepper mill is today. And the architectural style of this building is really why we are the stewards of this building. It really is a historic landmark. You can see the motel was open for more than 50 years. So this motel, it was very, very successful. And the building itself was commissioned to essentially be a building that grabbed people's attention off of Las Vegas Boulevard, right? That is literally written in the contract for the architect. That's what they wanted. And this was a family project too. It's just a little tidbit I love, is that this family was really involved in the creation of this motel. They literally were there. It's rumored that they were there literally, actually hammering things in, right? They were very much wanting this to be a family business. This is a postcard of what the hotel looked like, or the motel looked like when it was open. And here's another one. You can see Reviere's right in the back there. And then looking at the inside of the motel itself, this kind of architecture shape, it's called Googie, which is a funny word, and it does refer to kind of how funny these shapes are, right? There's these crazy kind of curvatures that you don't really see today. It's a very big style from the 50s, 60s. You kind of saw it in the 70s. Even looking at these light fixtures, if you look at the lines, kind of coming in between, letting that light come out, those are not kind of traditional squares or circles. So I'm gonna kind of start hopping in more. And I'm gonna talk about the architect himself. He's a very special architect to Nevada and to California, and really to Googie architecture in general. His name is Paul Revere Williams. He did a lot of government work in Los Angeles, that's where he's from, and then he moved on and started working for a lot of famous design firms. He was the first Black person that was inducted into the Institute of, American Institute of Architects. Did it? So he was the first Black person. He was the first one recognized for the work that he did. So it's very special to us, and we're going to make sure that we give him what he deserves. There's a lot of art that has been created off of him and based on him and his work. He also did a bunch of government housing in the West Side. So if you see any houses on the West Side that still look pretty nice, that was actually government housing back in the day. It's been regarded now as really, really beautiful architecture. So it's very interesting, kind of, you can see that history in the West Side for sure. And then here's just some pictures of him with his colleagues. Here's another one of him. Something that's interesting too is he did the Guardian Angel Cathedral here in town, and it is a beautiful cathedral if you've been there. If you haven't, I suggest going. It's also a Googie architecture, which you don't see in a lot of churches, right? You usually see a very traditional, almost like Gothic structure, and that is not this cathedral at all. Yep, and then here's a little bit about the West Side Park homes. And then just kind of looking at the rest of this lobby, right here you can see there's a really beautiful stained glass kind of mosaic. This is done by a man named Ben Mayer. Ben Mayer also did a lot of government work. He did a lot of public murals for banks, libraries, things like that. And then he teamed up with Paul Revere Williams, and he actually did the mosaics in the Guardian Angel Cathedral as well. So they worked with each other twice. He's a really interesting guy. I could go into him for a while. He became an astronomer after he got done being an architect and mosaic. So interesting. And then some last little pieces for me in the lobby, then we'll actually show you some signs. This thing right here. A lot of people are like, what is that? Who's Rachel? Are you Rachel? That is very sweet. I am not Rachel. That is actually just kind of a mascot for this program. So this pod, it's called a framery pod. It kind of looks like, I think, a telephone booth, but it's not. We've kind of retrofit it to be an oral history tool. So it stands for Record and Collect Historical Experiences in Las Vegas. I feel like we really named her Rachel because this was an inside joke in the office, and that's why she has this beautiful design. But really what this machine is, you walk into her, and there's an iPad screen, and that iPad will ask you 3 questions about your history in Vegas. And then you're given 2 minutes to answer each question. You can skip questions. You can walk out and delete your videos if you don't want us to have it. And that will go into what we call our learning collection. And even this piece of digital media that you're seeing, that's a part of our learning collection. So in the museum world, we have our traditional collection, which is what you're going to look at once I go outside of this lobby area. And then the learning collection, these are things that we use, right, to teach, right, to educate people with. So any of these videos that we get from Rachel, usually what happens is they come back into virtual tours just like this, where I'm going to be able to show you videos of these past stories. We've moved Rachel around, so right now she's in our lobby, but Rachel went to the Tropicana in the last weeks that it was open, and it got some stories from the staff members at the Tropicana, from guests at the Tropicana. We also moved her to some Super Bowl parties when the Super Bowl was here, so we've got some stories from some of the football players and some of the administration. And then one last thing, because I think it's important to just quickly kind of go over, there's a lot of different things we do. Signs are not it. Neon, obviously it sounds like that's all we do, but our mission has expanded to go far beyond that. There's not a lot of museums that are really just collecting the story of everyday people in Las Vegas, and we believe at the Neon Museum that that's very important to just preserving our history. So something that's really interesting and fun that we've been doing at the Neon Museum is we've been able to work with the city of Las Vegas and put on some exhibitions in the city hall. So you're gonna see our museum, it's outside, which comes with its own kind of barriers, right? Heat, rain, all of those things. So we're not able always to promote and show different artifacts that are not able to weather the storm. So we were lucky enough, we're working with Cirque, and Cirque has let us put on display, along with some of our items in City Hall, an exhibit. So this exhibit, it has different artifacts from different shows, from Michael Jackson 1, Mystere, The O, a lot of different shows. Here is a headpiece from The O, if you've seen that one. These are headpieces that some swimmers wear. Very creepy, they kind of like swim up, get closer to the audience. And I just kind of show different pieces like this because the costumes, just very quickly, you'll learn a lot more if you actually go to the exhibit. But these costumes, they're really created in a way that the performers will not get hurt. So if you look at this guy right here, he's got a lot of feathers on the back of him, on his head. And what if that were to get caught, right, on a set piece? Or let's say you do a flip next to someone and for some reason their hand, accidentally hits you in the head. The headpiece won't fall off and your head also won't get yanked. A lot of those costumes are made to where if you just barely yank on something, that piece of the costume will fall off. So no one's gonna get hurt, no one's falling off the high beam or off of the hula hoop, things like that. And that's just kind of my favorite pieces of the exhibition, but there's a lot more to look at. So if you wanna go down to City Hall, it's free, and it'll be open till July 17th. And that's just a little bit of kind of the other things that we do. I'm gonna now get into our actual Neon Boneyard. So Neon Boneyard, that term is actually an industry term. It doesn't refer to junkyard. I always have to correct everyone. No, not what we do is junk. We don't preserve junk. It refers to an industry term in the neon sign making world. In the neon sign making world, essentially neon signs, they're not owned by any casino, by any business. They're actually rented, right? So what happens is a business will open, they'll say, this is the kind of sign I want, these are the colors I want, and then they have a sign designer design that, and then that designer pushes the design off onto a technician. Those technicians then make that design, and then the business rents that sign until they're done with it. And through that as well, like you can kind of think of it as a homeowner, right? And you're renting from a homeowner, so they're gonna have to come back out and fix the sign every time something breaks. Neon's very expensive. If you see any businesses that claim they own their neon sign, it's most of the time actually LED. It's replica neon. It's not actual neon. And this term, boneyard, comes from this idea, right? That your sign gets returned back to the sign making company, it goes out into a yard, and then the next time a sign technician is building something, they'll go out into that yard and they pluck the bones off of the signs, right? The integral pieces off of a sign. So it's usually mechanical parts like transformers. My favorite fact that Matt has told me is that one of our signs is technically from the 50s, the Lido sign is from the 50s, but it's using a transformer from the 1940s. So we can see, right, that things are being reused over and over again on new signs. So that's why our museum, our outdoor space, is called the Neon Boneyard. And it's also because these artifacts are meant to be outside, right? They're meant to stand up to the test of time. So I'm gonna go over this guy right here, put up with kind of this homesickness a little bit as we walk around. I want to give you a good view. This is one of our newly restored signs. We've actually had this Tropicana sign in the collection since 2017, but last year it was finally re-illuminated, actually on the day that the Tropicana closed. So I think we all know that, right? The Tropicana closed last year in April, but I'm gonna go over kind of why it was so important and why, hopefully, where this land is going will honor what the Tropicana gave to Vegas. So this is just a bird's eye view of the Tropicana when it was first being constructed. It's a special piece of architecture, which I know you might think, why? But there's a Y shape in this architecture, and it was one of the first casinos that had this shape. And it's special because no matter what room you were staying in, you were gonna get a really pretty view, right, of the golf course that was behind the Tropicana, also the pool, the whole courtyard section. And then if you were looking at the boulevard, there was starting to be some really pretty casinos across the way. So there was pretty views no matter where you were. And the Tropicana really, in general, the theme of it was the tropics, right? But elegant, right? An elegant tropical vacation. And you can kind of see that, I think, in these postcards, even in that like font that they're using, in the fountain in the front. There's definitely kind of a pull towards, I think, extravagance when they opened. And then you can see over time, even the logo, right? The font of Tropicana changed. When the Tropicana closed, it actually had that pink kind of Miami font. The one that you see here and the one that we have in our boneyard is from the 70s. So there's just kind of some differences in evolution of the Tropicana. And we'll come back to the Tropicana. That's usually how I like to end my tour, and talk about kind of the future of Vegas. So I'm gonna hop around and I'm gonna give the mic to Matt, who is gonna hopefully give you a nice overview of where Vegas started and really kind of this downtown area. We used to split our museum into sections. We had like Motel Row, downtown, the Strip area. And we've just re-illuminated so many signs that it no longer really, we can't really keep things in sections. There's way too much. So I'm gonna give it over to Matt, and he's gonna start on, if I'm able to. Here we are. There we go.
All righty, good morning. Once again, my name is Matt. I've been with the museum for over 7 years now. I was originally a tour guide, now I'm the training supervisor. So we're really excited to walk you through the Neon Boneyard today, virtually. So what we have here is signage from the Golden Nugget, okay? And this is one small piece of a larger signage that basically engulfed the entire building. It's what's known as a decorated shed. So you take a rather ordinary looking building and you dazzle it with nothing but neon and incandescent light bulbs. Okay, so this was a design by Kermit Wayne of Yesco, the Young Electric Sign Company. And so this particular piece is from the 70s, but his design initially was from 1961. So Vegas does a really good job with anything you can do, I can do better. So his neighbor, Benny Binion, made a bigger and better, in his eyes, decorated shed. We'll talk about that in a minute. But anyways, there it is on the building. So this would be a shot basically from the 1960s. Now, we start our tour at the Golden Nugget for one really important reason. At the top of the sign, it says 1905, okay? The significance of 1905, that's when Las Vegas became a township, all right? Put ourselves on the proverbial map at that point, okay? We were a railroad stop between Salt Lake City and Los Angeles. A guy by the name of William Andrews Clark. He was a Montana senator, land baron, owned the water rights in the area and the railroads in the region. He found this strategically to be a very important spot so his steam engines can get water and it'd be a good stop along the way. Well, how did he get the land? He purchased the land from Helen Stewart, who is the first lady of Las Vegas, a rock star in her own right, that's for sure. She owned lots and lots of land. She had heard that the railroad was coming through, so she purchased as much land as she possibly could for a very, very nice payday for her and her family. So without Helen Stewart, Las Vegas would certainly be different today. So very good. So yeah, we were a railroad town, and for the regular tour, we just talk about the early days of the railroad and whatnot. If you're ever at the plaza, okay, right behind the plaza, that's where the original train depot was. Okay, as a matter of fact, when the plaza opened in 1971, knocked down the train depot and put the train depot inside the plaza. So there you go. How about that? All right, so we're going to venture a little bit further on down the way, this aisle. Very, very important piece of history here. This absolutely gorgeous sign, this beautiful pink sign, it's called the Moulin Rouge, okay? And the Moulin Rouge, very, very important for Las Vegas history. It was the first racially integrated casino that opened in May of 1955. It was very, very popular. It opened in May of 55. Now, unfortunately, it closes in October of 1955. We're not really sure why it had such a short run. We're thinking it might be money mismanagement. The mob might have been a little jealous of this particular property's popularity. But anyways, it was very, very impactful back in the day. In 1960, we had what was known as the Moulin Rouge Agreement. So city and state leaders got together with the NAACP, and they sat down inside the Moulin Rouge and just hammered out a handshake deal, basically saying we needed to end segregation in Las Vegas. It didn't end right then and there. A long struggle persisted. 1971 is when Las Vegas was fully desegregated. But if you take a look at the sign itself, the absolutely gorgeous handwriting here, very famous sign designer actually designed this sign. Her name was Betty Willis. So another female rock star in Las Vegas history. Wonderful women's history in Las Vegas, that's for sure. So Betty Willis, that's her. And she also designed the Welcome to Fabulous Las Vegas sign we have enjoyed since 1959. So absolutely wonderful. That is her handwriting. She studied Parisian font for just a little bit before designing the Moulin Rouge signage. And we were lucky enough several years ago, in 2013, she was able to come visit us at the museum. She mentioned this was one of her favorite designs. So we were very, very lucky to have her on a tour. So Moulin Rouge itself, lots and lots of different people performed there. Pearl Bailey, Harry Belafonte, Sammy Davis Jr. One really interesting thing about the Moulin Rouge, it was so popular that strip performers would get done with their shows and then come over to the Moulin Rouge and party some more. It was known as the breakfast show, 2:30 in the morning, if you can imagine that. So very, very interesting. So these are absolutely gorgeous letters here. This was a partial restoration back in 2020. All right, you go a little bit further on down the way. We've got Binion's horseshoe. Benny Binion was a interesting character in town. He was a Texas gambler, shows up with $1 million in his trunk back in the 1940s, kind of running from the law. When I say kind of, he had 2 murder charges. He was convicted on one and not the other. The one he was not convicted on, he shot himself in the shoulder before the cop showed up and said it was self-defense. And that worked. So there you go. But I gotta say, he did a lot for the gaming industry and for the casino industry and for people like you and me who enjoy going to gambling halls and whatnot. He made the experience a lot nicer. Before Benny Binion showed up, the gambling halls downtown, basically sawdust joints. So men were spitting their chew out on the floor, putting their cigarettes out. Horses walked in and did horse things, you know. So Benny Binion put a stop to that in his establishment. He was the first downtown to put carpeting in his downtown establishment. Oohs and ahs from the audience. Ooh, yeah, not really a big deal, but back then it really was a big deal. He also, here's another revolutionary thing, he was among the first to put seats in front of the slot machines, okay? If you remember back in the day, those one-armed bandits, you were standing the whole time, okay? And he's like, no, wait a minute. If we have people seated and gambling, they're gonna gamble a little bit more, okay? Here's a surefire way for them to gamble a little bit more after that. He was among the first to offer free drinks, free food, comp system basically. So among the first to do that. So you're seated, you've got a drink in your hand, you're drinking, you're gambling, you're drinking more, you're gambling more. That's how he makes his millions. Now, as far as those convictions are concerned, he never served any jail time. Later on in life, oh my, he serves lots of jail time. Any guesses as to why he went to jail? What's that? Yeah, tax evasion. So there you go. So he spent a few years in prison because of that. But we have Benny Binion to thank for a lot of the niceties that we all enjoy whenever we go visit a casino. All right, so very good. We're going to keep on further on down the way. I wanted to comment on the City Center Motel sign right over here. We do believe this is a Betty Willis design as well. As a matter of fact, when we had her in the Neon Boneyard, we asked her about this sign, and she couldn't quite remember if this was one of her designs or not. It wasn't the fact that she was 91. She was sharp as a tack. She designed so many signs in Las Vegas. She just couldn't quite remember. Many of her colleagues insist that this was one of her designs, one of my favorites, so I'd love to see that one come back to life someday. Straight ahead, we've got the Plaza Hotel and Casino. Now, I mentioned before the train depot. That is where the plaza sits today, the original train depot, the address 1 Main Street. So essentially it became the epicenter of Las Vegas. People were getting off the train right there and then spill out onto Fremont Street. So there's the old train depot, okay? The plaza itself's been open since 1971. It's still with us today. Had a very nice agreement with their higher-ups. They were nice enough to get this sign restored for us. It was really wonderful. The plaza, first downtown property to have female blackjack dealers, okay? Men were a little scared back in the 1950s. They didn't want the women taking all those great casino jobs. So pretty much it was voted not in the favor of women to have gaming dealers and whatnot. But Plaza was smart enough to say, no, we're going to change that. And in 1971, they most certainly did. So absolutely gorgeous signage. The Plaza is still with us today. I do believe Kaylee wanted to comment on some other things further on down the way. Yeah.
So I think the Plaza is a really good place to talk a little bit about neon and kind of the science of neon. So I'm going to turn us around, and we're going to go to the Yucca. The Yucca is a motel. It was a family-owned motel, and they were open, I believe, for more than 40 years, I want to say. But it was a really cool motel. It was essentially, you can see the theme of this motel was the desert, right? The yucca is a native plant to the Mojave Desert. The top of this sign, it's really trying to mimic the bloom of a yucca. You can see that's white, but yucca flowers can be blue, purple. White is the most common. And this sign is special for a lot of reasons from a design perspective. It's a directional sign, right? It's pointing to the motel. Come, drive, have your family stay there. But then also you can look and see there's a different color here, right? So neon, usually it glows, or not usually, it does. It glows pink. It's this kind of reddish pink orange color. And that's just natural. That's how it glows when it's electrified. And what you're seeing here is argon. So not everything in our Neon Boneyard is actually neon. Some of it's a mixture, right, of different kind of phosphors and different gases. So this right here, these colors, this is more of a blue color, and then you can see at the top there's a green. So the base, what we assume with this sign, the base gas is argon, and then some phosphors are put in there to create different colors. And then just a little bit on actually the technician that built this sign. So it's clear that a designer designed this and then gave this to a technician, and they needed a really skilled technician. Because if you're looking at the top of this sign, there are all kinds of swirls right here. And neon, it cannot be made by a machine. It has to be made by hand. So if you look at all of the swirls that are in this sign, that was someone who was actually manipulating a hot glass tube trying to make these different kind of shapes. So I always like to point that out, is that whoever made this sign was very, very technically skilled, and they actually signed the sign at the top, kind of like an artist, right? You'll sign the bottom of your painting. Some sign designers did that. They tried to hide them, right? Hide your signature so no one gets angry with you. But I like to comment on that. It's very interesting. And then if you see these light bulbs right here too, those are actually, they're painted. So there's glass paint over each of those light bulbs to create that yellow color. So sometimes it's phosphors, sometimes it's actually kind of that mixture, and then sometimes it's just glass paint that are creating these different colors. And then very, very quickly, this is just for me, one of the most interesting things that I've learned while working at the Neon Museum. It is the Downtown Neon Ordinance. It's literally an ordinance for most downtown businesses that are perpendicular from 6th Street to Las Vegas Boulevard. They have to have neon. So that's why you're gonna see classic franchises like 7-Eleven with these beautiful neon signs downtown. You know, why is that? It's actually, there's a law there. It's not just they're trying to get business. And then just to quickly kind of to talk about that replica neon that I was saying before. This is a theater downtown. It's called the Beverly Theater. They have a neon sign, but it's actually LED. The theater actually owns this sign. So it kind of goes back to what I said, right? Is neon is very expensive for a business to own, whereas an LED sign, that's a little bit easier. And then I wanted to quickly talk about animation. So if you see businesses downtown with, let's say, like a sculpture that's waving at you, think Vegas Vic, right, waving at you on Fremont, he's animated. So he gets through that ordinance just by being animated, right, seeing that movement. But bonus points, right, if you're animated and you're lit up. So that's Happy Shirt here. He's definitely a kid's favorite at the museum, one of their favorite signs. And just a fun fact about our office staff, one of our office staff members, he's a puppeteer, and he actually created a Happy Shirt puppet that he'll bring out at some family events. So I'm actually pretty excited. We're doing a thing called Steam Family Fest, where we open up our boneyard to really the public, and I'm hoping that our friend Doug in our office will bring us that puppet, and that'll be on June 21st. So if you guys want to make your way down there with your families, we would love it. It's $5 to get in, and I'm going to stop promoting myself, and I'll give it back to Matt.
All right, thanks, Kaylee. So we'll continue with our journey, our virtual journey in the Boneyard. A cool character on the right there is Andy Anderson from Anderson Dairy, one of the oldest establishments in all of Las Vegas, opened in 1907. And they're still with us today, just up the street from the Neon Museum. So this is Andy Anderson. He's a character they designed or developed back in the 1950s. So we don't have milkmen anymore, so they changed their mascot to a cow jumping over a star, and the cow's name is Cowsy Yum. So there you go. But we love having Andy in our collection. Right next to Andy is the oldest sign that we have in the Neon Boneyard. It's from the Green Shack. How many of you actually ate at the Green Shack? We got a couple hands. That's awesome. I would have loved to take a time machine and go back in time to experience the Green Shack. A woman by the name of Maddie Jones starts the Green Shack back in the late 1920s, 1930s. And she was serving bootleg whiskey and fried chicken to the workers of the dam as early as 1931. Just a little problem with that, there was prohibition going on from 1920 to 1933. She didn't care too much about that. She still served that to the workers. Very, very long running restaurant all the way to 1999. The same family owned it for all of those years. We absolutely love. This is an absolute gem in our collection. So the Green Shack. All right, so we'll venture on down just a little bit further down the way. I want to talk about a very recent restoration of ours, October of last year. On the right-hand side, we've got the Debbie Reynolds Hollywood Hotel and Casino signage. That is her signature right there, Debbie. Wonderful, wonderful longtime performer, comedian, singer. She did it all, basically. She was also a collector of Hollywood memorabilia. She had a lot, and she wanted somewhere to display such wonderful things like one of the pairs of the ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz, the dress that Marilyn Monroe wore in The 7-Year Itch, among many, many other things. So this was more than just a hotel and casino. It was a museum that she opened in the 1990s. Unfortunately, it only lasted just a few years, but now we have her signage, and this was a restoration. There you see the sign company lifting it out of the boneyard. So that's interesting. This was a recent exhibit that we had at City Hall, talking about Debbie Reynolds and specifically about her experiences in Las Vegas. Did you know Debbie Reynolds, the first $1 million performer in Las Vegas? Not the Rat Pack, not any of those boys. It was Debbie Reynolds at the Revere back in the day. So like I said, wonderful, wonderful women's history in Las Vegas. So absolutely gorgeous sign. Right next to it, I'm going to go ahead and offer a shout out to Jerry's Nugget. This was a restoration from 2014. This is the last of the great independents, folks. Not owned by Boyd, not owned by Stations, MGM, or anything like that. They are locally owned and operated. I just saw Mr. Stammis the other day when I was having dinner with a friend of mine. He's still walking the floor. Two cousins named Jerry opened this place back in 1964, and it is still with us today. Side note, when Nevada and the world shut down back in March of 2020, my brother and I, we might as well be stockholders at this place. We go to the cafe all the time. Our very first thought was, oh my gosh, what is Jerry's going to do? Because they don't have locks on their doors. They have never closed since '64. So we drove by 11:30 at night, and it was all boarded up, 2x4s and plywood and stuff like that. We were crying. It was pretty sad. So across the way, oh, there she is. Okay, the Stardust, absolutely gorgeous letters here. These letters were a bit of a mystery for the Neon Museum for quite some time. We couldn't exactly place where these letters came from, and we didn't find them anywhere on the building or on the property itself. And one of our executive team just accidentally came across these letters actually on a billboard on the highway from California just as you were coming into town. So mystery solved. Absolutely wonderful. And we actually re-illuminated this sign just a few days before the shutdown in March of 2020. So we're very, very glad to have the Stardust signage back to life. So right behind it, you can see the tower right there, okay? And all those four-pointed stars. We've got all 9 of the pieces of the mega pylon sign from 1968. It's been disassembled and scattered throughout our campus. It's just too massive of a sign for us to reassemble. When you talk about massive, if you compare it to the guitar, which stands at 82 feet tall, the Stardust pylon sign, the mega pylon sign from 1968, when it was fully assembled, it was 188 feet tall and 90 feet across. So that's 2.5 guitars, and then super wide as well. So really, really impressive. All right, further on down the way, we can't talk about the Stardust without talking about its very popular show, the Lido de Paris, okay? Very, very long-running show, opened up the same day inside the Stardust, July 2nd, 1958. And it was a variety show of sorts, acrobats, jugglers, magicians, and whatnot. Among the first topless dancers on the Las Vegas Strip as well. So very, very popular. Lasted all the way to 1991. 19 million people enjoyed this show. It was high-tech everything. It had a 100-foot tall waterfall on stage. So taller than the guitar, if you can believe that. That's pretty amazing. Wireless microphones back in 1958. That's pretty impressive as well. All right, so we're going to go and venture into the main Boneyard space itself. On the right-hand side, a very bright pink sign. Another recent restoration. The Flamingo, which is currently the oldest property on the Las Vegas Strip. At 1946, still going strong. Benjamin Bugsy Siegel is erroneously given credit for starting this particular property. He actually finished the job. It was a guy by the name of Billy Wilkerson, who was a Los Angeles businessman, a little bit of a gambler himself. Thought it was a great idea to open up a resort on what becomes the Las Vegas Strip. Well, that's a great idea, but he ran out of money, go figure. And he needed to call in some help. And unfortunately, help came in the form of Benjamin Bugsy Siegel and some of his boys. And they kind of shoved Mr. Wilkerson out of the project. The opening, December of 1946, kind of a disaster. They were way over budget. The rooms were not done. There was a storm between Los Angeles and Las Vegas, so a lot of Bugsy Siegel's friends couldn't even come to the opening. So they had to regroup. They shut down for a little bit, reopened in March of 1947, and the rest, as they say, is history. Now, Mr. Siegel did not get to enjoy much of the success of the Flamingo. He was assassinated in Beverly Hills in June of 1947. So there you go. All right. A couple other things how about that guitar? Okay. Absolutely wonderful. This was an installation back in 2019, the Hard Rock Cafe. So, would you believe this was ready for the scrap heap? It was going to get thrown out. But Yesco, the Young Electric Sign Company, they gave our executive director at the time a call and said, would you like this beautiful guitar? We'd be happy to loan it to you. And he said, absolutely. So this was a really wonderful campaign to get this guitar back up and running. It's modeled after Pete Townsend of The Who's Gibson Les Paul, if you're curious. So there's Pete Townsend doing his thing back in the day. They finally announced their "This Song Is Over" tour. Pretty excited. They're The Who's all done at this point. But anyways, the guitar stands 82 feet tall. It's got a 24-foot wide footprint. So it is tough to miss if you're going to the Neon Museum. So there you go. We've actually had a couple people walk in to the La Concha and ask for a seat and ask for a menu. They thought this was the Hard Rock. So there you go. Pretty bizarre. But there you have it. All right. Kaylee, how are we doing on time here? One more sign? Okay. Let's go off the beaten path a little bit. You may notice this cute, like, yellow blob thing in the background. I'd love to talk about him. This duck was a restoration of ours from a few years back. All right. Oh, there he is. Super detailed. My goodness. Any guesses as to where he might have come from? What business? It's not a hotel or casino. Anything? It was a car dealership. Ugly Duckling Car Sales. Yeah, so this was a national chain. A guy by the name of Thomas Duck, and I can't possibly make this up. He names it after himself, essentially, Ugly Duckling Car Sales. If you're curious, he owns Drive Time now, so he's doing just fine. Anyways, he wanted, in Vegas, it's go big or go home, and he went big with this sign. So big, I don't know, might be one of the reasons why it only lasted a few years in the 1990s. This was a very, very expensive sign. And what makes it so expensive, if you notice the metal borders around much of the neon for the duck's wings, his eyes, his bill, and so forth, that metal border is known as channeling, okay? In order to get clarity and definition for any images on your sign, you're going to want to use that metal channeling. It's very labor-intensive and very, very expensive. So as poor Mr. Duck found out, his car lot lasted only a few years in the 1990s. Now, he was only selling cars for $5,000 or less. That's a lot of cars for that duck. So there you go. All right, I'm going to give it back to Kaylee. So that was kind of a greatest hits and some B-sides, I'd say, as far as the museum's concerned. So, Kaylee, here you go.
See what I mean? He's pretty good at that. It's like he's been doing it for a long time. So I like to end it here. This is kind of my favorite thing, to talk about what's happening to Vegas, right? Like, not what happened, but let's look at the future. Let's look at the evolution. And I think we all know what's happening, right? Is there's a lot of sports tourism that we're about to see. We're already seeing it with the Raiders. We have the Golden Knights. We even have the Aces, right? The Aces. We have the Silver Knights. Like, we are really beginning to become a sports city. And I think that's in a way a good thing, right? It's all an opinion, right? These are all our own ideas. But thinking about the Tropicana and how historic that was, I mean, it was a property that was open for more than 60 years, right? And actually, I have a shirt. I just bought this at a vintage store, and I was so excited. And I tried to look up when it was made, and it's the same letters as what we have, so I'm figuring the 80s. But it says, the way Vegas should be. So for me, there's some heartbreak when it comes to the Tropicana. I was actually lucky enough to go into the Tropicana and do a 3D photo shoot. So we have scans of the Tropicana's casino floor, of some of their suites, the wedding chapel, the pool, the theater. They really gave us complete access to the casino before it was demolished. Just thank you. I think it's important. I don't think a lot of people feel that strongly, but we do at the museum. And that's another tour that I could come out and I could give you guys as a nice little tour of the Tropicana. I had no idea I would learn so much about the Tropicana in this position, but now I have it. And that's just kind of a way that we preserve history, right, is getting these digital artifacts. And then I'm just showing you kind of some renderings of what's to come on that land. I think we all know the A's, the Oakland A's, are going to come to our city. Here are the renderings of what the stadium may look like. My opinion is it looks like the Sydney Opera House. Very, very different than the architecture that's around it. And then you can kind of see the tower that's on the side. I think that ties it into Vegas a little bit more. But that's where I like to end it. It's just, thinking about where we're going from here. And I think this is, we have like 10 minutes. So questions?
I'll preface my question with just a comment. I was very surprised to see the reference to the Green Shack, because years and years ago, the thing we used to do on our visits was go bowling at the Showboat and then go down the street and have the best fried chicken ever at the Green Shack. It was phenomenal. My question is this. As I came to learn from your wonderful talk, it's more than just a bunch of signs. It's a lot of history. And to get that history, you have to have input from some real experts. Two of the people who come to mind, who I'm going to name, I'm going to ask you if perhaps they were consultants. They're both from UNLV. One of them is Dr. Clady White, who was an expert on the West Side in particular. And the other, of course, is Dr. Michael Green. And I'm wondering what role people like them would have played in the creation of telling the story here.
Both Clay T. White and Dr. Green are huge influences on the city, for sure. They're both among my local heroes. During the 2-week training program that I have for my guides, we do lean in heavily on the Centennial Commission of Las Vegas videos. I'm getting all fluttery right now because the next video from the 1970s is coming up on May 17th. It's going to debut, but they've done one every single year right around the anniversary of Las Vegas. We are 120 years old in just 2 days, folks. May 15th, 1905, so very exciting. But yes, they are huge, huge influences. I was at a talk a few years back at the Nevada State Museum. Clay T. White was there, and I just froze. I was going to approach her, but I'm just like, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. But wonderful, wonderful people and wonderful historians. Absolutely, yeah.
Hi, yes, for the talk. I was wondering, I thought I had read the museum is going to be relocating to the art district. Is that correct?
We are going to be moving. I actually have our deputy director, Sarah Hume, who would love to talk to you about that. She's got lots more answers than I do on that subject. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our deputy director, Sarah Hume.
Good morning, and thank you, Matt and Kaylee. That was wonderful. This is actually my first time of seeing this presentation from them as well, and so thank you, and thank you all of you for coming this morning. What a fantastic turnout. Yes, expansion. So as you've seen from the images this morning, yes, a small area that we actually occupy, just over 2 acres. And when you're talking about signs that are 84 foot high and 90 foot wide and so on, it doesn't take long to fill up that space by any means. We also do have a significant number of signs that are not part of the public boneyard, and we've actually had to put into storage because we really don't have any space left. The other part is that the office space is very small where we are. And in fact, we occupy 2 other locations for all our back-of-house staff. We are now up to 66 members of the team and going strong. But we need to bring them all together into one location, and that is definitely something that we're looking for. We're talking to the city, we're talking to the county, we're also up at Carson City and talking to a legislator up there as well to help us in supporting us to make that move. Nothing to announce at this point in time. We had looked at a location in the Arts District. We're still trying to find the best location that will give us the possibility of having more signs out, but also some inside galleries. Because as Kaylee and Matt have talked about, our mission is about telling the stories of Las Vegas, past, present, and you've heard a little bit of future there as well, and we'd like to do that. But we can only do that if we've got some inside space. The challenges of an external museum in this climate is particularly difficult. So yes, we are looking, and people are being very, very supportive of our need. We just don't have anything at this time to announce, but as soon as we do, we will definitely share. So apologies for interrupting, gang, but thank you. There we go.
Hi, I wanted to, you said that Neon needs electricity to electrify the gas.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, where on earth did they get enough electricity to do the duck and all the rest of them?
Do you want to answer that? You want me to answer that one? I'll answer that one. Okay, so neon is expensive. That's the answer, right? Is that neon was very, very expensive. If you look back at some of those signs that we showed you, like the Green Shack is a good example. She's pretty small, right? There's only a little bit of neon on that sign. That the duck, what year is that from? He's from the 90s. So, you know, I think you're going to see the evolution of what you just said. Where does that electricity come from? You'll see that, I think, in the evolution, right, of these signs.
Where does it come from, the dam?
Oh, the electricity? It comes from, honestly, I don't want to pretend that I know everything. But I would assume from the dam, from a bunch of different resources that we have here in Nevada.
Hi, first of all, thanks very much. This has been a great presentation. Is it on? The building itself, the Concha, I know that it was moved, and I know that there's rumors that when the museum moves, it'll be moved again. And I've heard there's lots of issues because it's getting delicate. Can you talk anything about how these buildings are moved?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to give that to Sarah. Sarah is a little bit more of a collections team person. I'm not necessarily, I think, super knowledgeable.
Yes, so what we've been doing, that is correct. Our intention is that we will move La Concha to wherever we relocate. It's a really important part. And also as custodians of that building, it's really important that we continue to take care of it, and it has protective orders against it. So what we've been doing is reevaluating the structure at the moment to check. It's a very thin layer of cement that creates those beautiful arches. And there's actually a film that goes over that as well. So what we've been doing is checking the integrity of the building to make sure that it could withstand another move. Every indication that we have at the moment is that it actually could. It is in very good condition, considering its age. And so, yeah, that's our intention at the moment. But what we will do, and this is working with SHPO, this is working with the city, this is, you know, all the different agencies that we need to in order to get the permissions and the support to move that. But that's a multi-million move in its own right, aside from the actual museum itself. How does it, well, the way it was originally moved is they cut it into 6 segments, and they put it on flatbed trucks, and they drove it 3 miles up the Las Vegas Boulevard, and then it was literally put back together again. And so, you know, that might be a way that we do it, because really what all we're doing is we're recreating where the cuts already were, and therefore we're not putting any more stress on the building than it already has. So that's one of our thoughts. It's just, you just couldn't pick it up in its own right. We would have to do something to make it smaller. There we go, and that's it. No, that's fabulous, absolutely, just putting it all back together. And Paul Revere Williams, this was really interesting because if you go to the Guardian Angel Cathedral, which is, as Kaylee said, the most spectacular building, it's all about triangles and points and angles. And yet he then sat down, or prior to that, he sat down and he created this beautiful seashell-like building. So what Paul did, and why you can't recognize his architecture, is because he built for his customer. He'd sit with them and work out what they wanted and design for them, rather than, well, my style is, therefore it's going to look like this. And that's why you can't actually tell it's a Paul Revere house or building or public community building, because he was so intent on designing for his customer, which is why La Concha is so different to the Guardian Angel Cathedral. So yeah, but we will, that we are making every step to move La Concha as well.
Okay, last question over there.
Here you go. Is there anything
Wait for the mic.
for the 2 acres that are already used?
As in for us keeping that 2 acres? So we're still in the interpretive planning phase, which is just a phase of basically looking at our collection and figuring out what would be the best way to display that collection. So to be honest, the answer, I don't know, right? Is it might end up being that maybe we do end up keeping that space and leaving some signs there, kind of having a satellite campus. That's not in the plans currently. The plans are still being planned, still being formulated. So I don't have a good answer to that, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We've really, really enjoyed that. Remember, there's a sign up in the back of interest for those of you who might be interested in a bus trip to the Neon Museum. And don't forget, a week from tomorrow, we will be on a safari with Art Shoots. Thank you all for coming.
If I can, very quickly, sorry, I'm so sorry, you're clapping for me and I'm interrupting your clapping, I'm sorry. But I really feel so passionately about survey data. Please take our survey. I would love it. Matt and I, we can pass it around. They're at the back of the room right here. And then as you head out, if you'll just leave it in my turn-in kind of thing, no grades on your survey. I just want to know what you thought of our program. Be honest, you know. It's very important to us that we keep coming out into the community and doing this. So just answer our 5 questions, and you can leave it right here at the door. I also have some flyers of other programs that I do with older adults. We do workshops, other virtual tours. So if you guys want to come to any of those, please do. And we'll kind of pass these around, yeah, if you guys want to do it that way. Oh, yep, then next time that is what I will do. Thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate it, and I had a great time being here.